Next question is, what is a docstring and where can we use it and how can we define it? So what's a docstring? Okay, so first of all, as you can probably guess from the name, right, a docstring equals a documentation string. Okay, that's not the complete answer to this question, obviously. So let's say I want to know how a certain function in Python works. If I'm in Jupyter or an interactive environment, I can use the help function, help on len, or help on, I don't know, stir upper. Okay, and so, or even help on stir split, something a little more exciting. And what I get is documentation on the function. It tells me about the function. It tells me the function's parameter names. It tells me any defaults that might be there, and it gives me some more information about the function. So what if I do this? What if I say here def hello, and we'll say here first and last equals empty string. And then we'll say here return, hello first last. So now I can say hello Reuben and hello out there. Oops, let's add a comma there. And this will work just fine. But let's say I don't know much about this hello function, and it intrigues me, so I want to ask for the help on it. So I say help on hello. And, well, it says help on function hello module main. That's true so far. It gives me the function signature with the names, the parameters, and their defaults, but there's nothing after that. And I'm left wondering, what could this function hello possibly do? All right, maybe I'm not quite left in such suspense. In any event, what I didn't do when I defined my function was give it a docstring. So I'm going to do that now. And that means the first line of the function is going to be a string, typically and traditionally a triple quoted string, although it doesn't have to be, right? And so this is, the world's best function. It's so great, it gets a 2-line docstring. And now, if I run the function, it works exactly the same way. But what if I say help on hello? Well, now we're getting that docstring there. So what's happening is, if the first line of the function is a string, and notice we're not assigning the string to anything, the first line is simply a string. If the first line is a string, then when we compile the function, when we define the function, Python grabs that docstring and sticks it into the function object. By the way, where does it stick it? It puts in hello doc. And so it's there. That's where our string goes. So it's in the function object right there. And so whenever, say, help runs, it looks for the docstring and it grabs it. Now, this is a terrible docstring. Why is it a terrible docstring? Because it doesn't actually give us the information we need to use the function. And so what I learned back in college, and I'm going to repeat it here, is that every function's documentation should have 3 things. It should say, what does it expect, what does it modify, and what does it returns. So it returns a string, a friendly greeting using the person's name. It modifies nothing. And it expects 1 or 2 strings representing first and last names. And now it still runs exactly the same way. But now if I say, hey, give me a help on hello, wow, now I can actually understand what's going on here. Now you don't have to be quite as explicit about the expects, modifies, and returns, although that's not a bad thing. It's important also to understand that the docstring here is not instead of comments. It is aimed at a completely different audience than comments. Comments are aimed at the person who's going to be modifying the function, maintaining the function. A docstring is aimed at whoever's going to be using the function. They don't care about how the function works. They just care about its interface, about its outside. This is sometimes known as an API doc in other languages. Now, it turns out that docstrings are not only useful in functions, they're also useful in classes and even in modules. So I'm going to ignore modules for now. That just means putting a docstring at the top of the file. But in a class, you can definitely have a docstring. So I'm going to say here class person. We'll say def init self name. All right, so self name equals name. Let's even put in a docstring here. I'm going to say here, initializes a new person. Expects to get a string for the person's name and modifies the self object and returns none because all inits return none. Okay, so if I do that, that's great for my initial initialization of docstring. Let's do this, def greet self. Now I can do a return. It's going to be the same thing, hello self name. And here I'll say, let's just do returns a friendly greeting. And then these are the docstrings for our methods. And methods are, of course, functions inside of a class. But I can also have a docstring in the class. Person class, right, represents a person or creature trying to pretend to be a person. And so after I define this, if I now say help on person, well, look at that. Now we have the docstring from here, and you can see that it's formatted in a nice way. Here we get, like, you know, all the docstring from the beginning, and then each method gets its own docstring as well. And data descriptors, well, we don't have any data descriptors. What if I add a one or two class attributes? So I can say here, like, you know, population equals 0. If I do that now, and we ask for the help, you'll see it's going to mention, because there's no documentation for it, it'll mention here, data and other attributes defined here, population is there. So docstrings are pretty common. It's rare to find a function or class that does not define a docstring. Certainly it's something that you're going to be distributing to other people. And it's a great way to communicate your intentions in the API to other people using your functions, classes, and even modules.